Once upon a time, a Major League umpire threatened to go on strike if Major League stadiums didn't stop showing replays of his bad calls. You'll never guess whose son umpired this game tonight. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thank you to all of us who are joining us live as we are here on our YouTube channel, going live tonight. We appreciate all of you, whether you're listening live or in the future. Ooh, the future, that sounds fun. Either way, we appreciate you. And if you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. And the easiest way to do that is by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snyder. My co-host is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you, probably all of you who are with us live anyway. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we're bringing the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And I teased the umpire talk. We're not going to talk about the umpires this first segment. We are going to talk about the umpiring in the second segment. I'll say right now, it's not why the Dodgers lost, but you know what? It's not why the Dodgers lost. So there's plenty of blame to go around. But in this first segment, we're going to talk about the one place where the blame doesn't really lie, and that's the pitching, because the Dodgers somehow got through a bullpen game without using any members of the bullpen who were on the roster the last time we recorded an episode 24 hours ago, Vince. Elieser Hernandez got called up for the spot start, went 6 innings, and Eduardo Salazar pitched the last 2 innings. I mean, they count because they are taking up 2 of the bullpen spots, but as far as bullpen games go, you could do a lot worse than this, huh?
Yeah, and we had a whole segment and part of segment 2 days ago, and the one guy that ended up taking down the majority of this game was someone we didn't mention at all. So, he also, probably wasn't. He might have been on your radar. I don't know if he was on my radar, but it made sense, and he was stretched out. He had gone at least 5 innings in every start. Elieser Hernandez had gone at least 5 innings in all his starts this season in AAA, other than the first start of the season, which I would imagine was based. He wasn't that ineffective, so it got to be based on some kind of pitch count or whatever else. But he had gone 5 innings, and then he gets to the majors and he goes 6 innings and just allows the 3 runs, 1 home run off Yastrzemski, who was one of the better Giants of this series. And yeah, for everything we talked about yesterday of how the Dodgers need to get through this game without trying to use other guys, and they need to get some length from somebody. Exactly what they got, and realistically, Salazar might go back down. Elieser is going to be an interesting one because he cannot get sent back down by option. He would have to get designated for assignment, and after a performance like this, who knows if he wouldn't get picked up.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. Elieser Hernandez wasn't on my radar last night when we recorded. He was by this afternoon. I was looking into it, and I had basically ruled him out because he has pitched really well in AAA, and knowing that if he did get called up, he had to be added to the 40-man roster, which put him kind of on the chopping block when they need a new 40-man roster spot. I didn't think they would do that with him because basically, the summary is I thought he was too good to get called up right now. But he did get called up and he was really good. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see because he has been a starter in AAA, but he could definitely fill a long reliever role for this Dodgers team. The hard part is he's now not available for the next 4 days, probably with his pitch count. And the Dodgers probably have another bullpen game coming up on Sunday, probably an actual bullpen game this time, because the alternative would be Yamamoto going on regular rest, which he doesn't do very often, hasn't done yet at all with the Dodgers. And so as we head into this, we got through this game, and it was a bummer that the offense didn't show up, because if Tuesday night's offense shows up on Wednesday night, the Dodgers win this game. And honestly, if Wednesday night's offense showed up on Tuesday's game, we still might have won. I know the Giants scored 2 runs on Tuesday. The Dodgers only scored 1 run tonight, but it's different when you're trailing. So, it's not necessarily, who knows what would happen. But the fact is, the pitching did everything they could have hoped for. And really, this is why you win the first 2 games of a series, so that, especially when you have a bullpen game coming up, even though it didn't play out the way we expected. I don't think any of us would have been surprised about the Dodgers losing a game, Logan Webb against the bullpen game. The actual mechanics of it, the Dodgers should have gotten to Logan Webb. They got his pitch count up and everything. And the bullpen actually, or the, quote unquote bullpen game actually pitched really well. But in the end, it's a loss like we wouldn't have been surprised about 24 hours ago. And, caps off a 3-3 road trip, which isn't great, but the second place team got swept by the Rockies. So I assume that means, I think the D-backs are now tied with the Padres for second place, 7.5 games back. So all in all, things could be worse, but yeah, it's a frustrating game to lose.
Yeah, it's one of those where you keep up the streak of the 4 runs or less, and you think, even if Logan Webb was on, you don't necessarily expect shutout, 5. You expect them to go 5, 6, maybe 7, but maybe not shutout. Maybe the Dodgers, get a run here, there. And they had him on the ropes in that first inning. And, every time the Dodgers get a very good starting pitcher on the ropes in the first inning and either only score 1 or don't capitalize on it, I start getting traumatic thoughts of postseason baseball. But, this one, they had the chance in the first. They didn't really have too many chances against Logan Webb the rest of the way. And, to have bases loaded with Muncy and Teoscar coming up, and, Teoscar, if they had been switched in the lineup, the Dodgers would have got at least 1 run based on if they had the same exact results. Muncy's come up recently and had some really bad at-bats with runners on base and runners in scoring position. And, overall, like we talked about last week, like his numbers are looking good and he's hitting a little bit better, but he has not looked good with runners on base recently. And especially against the Giants, a team that we're used to him dominating, it was, a little bit surprising. Teoscar did put the ball in play, but again, there was 2 outs and, they're not going to score a sac fly with that. But either way, it was about as good as you can get from a bullpen game with 2 guys that you called up that same day and getting into the weekend with your bullpen at full strength somewhat.
Yeah, and it was kind of a good example of how baseball is a game of inches. The Dodgers hit a lot of balls hard tonight. One of them, Teoscar, got robbed of a home run. They had some hard hit balls hit right at people. And then, they had some hits, but didn't lump the hits together to manufacture the runs for the most part. And that was, it's easy to look at one game and get frustrated. When you look at the bigger picture and say the Dodgers have still won 17 of their last 22 games, that's still very good. And the pitching has been the key there, because this was again the 22nd straight game that they allowed 4 runs or less. And I think if you had asked us, okay, if the Dodgers allowed 4 runs or less all season long, how many games do you think they'd win? We probably would have said, about 115, and 17-5, I would guess, is roughly about, 17 divided by 22 is a 773 winning percentage times 162, 125 wins. So the Dodgers are on 125 win pace during this stretch. And that's because baseball's hard, hitting is hard. And sometimes your offense just has an off game. And the fact that the offense has had 5 off games in these 17 games, you know what, we'll take it. And I think it's a fair trade-off for the great pitching. And again, like you said, we just hope that we hope all that talk about the regular season doesn't matter when it comes to the postseason. Tonight's one of those nights when we hope that's true.
Yeah. And, again, I guess I was called out for not giving credit where credit's due. And Logan Webb, gets that credit, whether it was the Dodgers being bad or him being good, regardless of what the answer is. He got the job done. And, it was one of those where, hey, it happens. Yastrzemski is one of the only major league hitters in that lineup, and he did what a major league hitter can do sometimes. It's just hit a home run. We got Matos, learned how to play center field overnight. It didn't take away a run, but it took away a chance with the runner in scoring position for sure. So it's one of those things where I'm not going to read too much into it. I see some of the comments here are maybe reading a little bit too much into it. But sometimes it just happens. You don't score, you don't win. And one reason potentially that didn't happen is something you're going to talk about next. So
Yep. All right, we're going to come back in a minute. Everydayers know I have set a rule for myself. I am only allowed 2 umpire rants per season. I define umpire rant. I can mention them, but a whole segment about the umpires, I'm only allowed to do it twice a season. Haven't done it yet this season. Guess what? Call your family, call your friends, let them know it's coming up. And after the break, I am going to give some thoughts on the umpiring. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets can be frustrating, whether it's a Dodger game, another sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, or whatever. It can be a major pain to not know how good the seats are, whether you're getting the best price, all that headache. But Game Time takes that headache away. With their seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And with the Game Time guarantee, you're guaranteed the best price on your tickets. That's right. If you find the seats in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You can also use Game Time's last-minute deals to save up to 60% off buying on last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. I've personally used Game Time a lot, several times when I travel to LA to go to Dodger games, but also when I went to see Nate Bargatze, my favorite comedian, when he came to Salt Lake City. I tried out all the sites because I don't just trust things blindly, and the Game Time guarantee would have worked because I did find by far the cheapest tickets on Game Time. So I'm sold because it was the best option I could find. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, we are back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, especially thanks to our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning, and you can make that easy on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. I saw last week only about 35% of our audience on YouTube is subscribed on YouTube. So if you're one of those who's watching but isn't subscribed, just hit the little subscribe button right now. Hit the bell so you're notified when we go live or when an episode's up. Also, you can become
pretty close to 6,000. So
yeah, we got a good group of subscribers, but let's bump that up some more. You can also become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can text with us back and forth. It's a lot of fun. You can, what else? Oh, check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. And you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. And now, once upon a time, there was an umpire named Harry Wendelstedt. He is famous in Dodgers folklore because back in 1968, he saved Don Drysdale's scoreless inning streak with 2 out or nobody out, bases loaded in the 9th inning of a game between the Dodgers and the Giants. Don Drysdale hit Dick Dietz with the pitch, and Harry Wendelstedt said, "Nope, you didn't try to get out of the way." Made him get back in the box. He ended up flying out. Drysdale got the next 2 outs and kept his scoreless streak alive. So Harry Wendelstedt is a legend in Dodger history, but he wasn't actually a very good umpire. And he once famously threatened to go on strike if the scoreboard operators at the Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh didn't stop showing replays of his bad calls. Well, his son, Hunter, Harry Hunter Wendelstedt III, is now a longtime MLB umpire. And among 85 umpires in Major League Baseball this year, he is the 5th worst. And we got to see that in action tonight. I'll disclaimer here. I don't believe that Hunter Wendelstedt is the reason the Dodgers lost this game. I'm not saying that Wendelstedt cost the Dodgers the game. I'm saying as a baseball fan, it would have been really fun to see what would have happened in this game if the 2 teams had played against each other, instead of the 2 teams playing against each other and the umpire. And yeah, that Wendelstedt made some bad calls that went in the Dodgers' favor too. But in that bottom of the 8th inning, Eduardo Salazar had to get 5 strikeouts to get 3 outs because Lamont Wade struck out looking at ball 4. It was strike 3. Umpire called it ball 4. Next batter struck out looking and then had to strike out again on the next pitch. In the end, Salazar gives up a run when he shouldn't have, because the guy who scored should have struck out looking. And earlier in the game, Shohei Ohtani struck out looking twice. One of those, I don't know for sure. The first one, it was definitely low on the K zone on the TV, but I don't trust the high and low on the K zones nearly as much as I trust the inside and outside, simply because inside and outside don't change. So it's really easy for even a TV crew to put the box in the right place. I'm not always convinced that the high and low is in the right place. And the Baseball Savant live feed of the game showed the first strikeout of Ohtani, the pitch being in the zone. We'll have to wait till tomorrow to see the ump scorecard and see whether it was a strike or not, that we get the more accurate strike zones and everything. My guess is that one probably did clip the zone. Second strikeout was definitely outside. And as a baseball fan, even if you're not a Dodger fan, wouldn't you rather see Shohei Ohtani, hit than strike out looking at a pitch that's not a strike? Like, just as a baseball purist, as somebody who believes that the rule book, where it defines the definition of a strike, maybe we ought to follow that rule. And when people talk to me about the human element, and I know if you're an everydayer, you've maybe heard this part of the rant before. People talk about human element and how if you bring in robot umps, you're taking away the human element of the game. Guess what? I get my human element from the humans playing the game, from the pitcher trying to make his pitch, from the hitters trying to hit that pitcher's pitch, from the defense trying to make a great play, like Luis Matos robbing a home run after looking like my dead grandma playing center field the first two games of the series. That's some fun human element, even when it goes against the Dodgers. Like that, I was mad when Matos robbed that home run. It was still fun to watch because it's a baseball player making a great play. It's the human element at its finest. I don't need the human element in rules enforcement. The rule book defines what is a ball and what is a strike. I don't need a human saying, well, you know what, today, according to the poor vision of a 52-year-old man, that one was a strike, even though the rule book says it wasn't. We wouldn't allow that in any other line of work. Like if you got pulled over for speeding and the umpire said, hey, you tell the umpire, the cop said, you're going 75 in a 70 mile an hour zone. And you say, I was looking at my speedometer, I was going 70 miles an hour. And the ump says, but you know what? It felt like 75 to me today. Would you stand for that? And I understand that laws and baseball rules aren't the same thing. This is an analogy. I've been called out on that. Well, it's not that serious, man. It's not like getting pulled over. I know that, but it's a game that we spend a lot of time and money on as fans, and seems like a simple thing like balls and strikes, the most common part of a baseball game that is also very clearly defined in the rule book. Wouldn't it be fun if we saw a baseball game where we didn't have to guess how will the rules be enforced tonight? That's what I think. I think that would be fun. And again, I don't believe that Hunter Wendelstedt cost the Dodgers the game tonight. He might have. I don't know for sure. I don't know what Shohei Ohtani would have done on the pitch after he didn't strike out if he hadn't struck out looking. I don't know if the ninth inning would have gone differently if the Dodgers were only down by 2 like they should have been instead of down by 3. There are a lot of things we don't know. And that's kind of the point, that we shouldn't have all these unknowns at the end of a game. We should know exactly what happened. We should know, hey, look, the human element of the Giants scored more runs than the human element of the Dodgers tonight, so the Giants won. And when we're including the human element of Harry Hunter freaking Wendelstedt III, who is bad at his job, has been bad at his job for a long time, is the 5th worst in baseball this year. And like, you look at the guys he's worse than. Doug Eddings is terrible. Angel Hernandez is 13 spots better than Hunter Wendelstedt. Picture that. This guy is worse than Angel Hernandez. He's worse than Phil Cuzzi, who had last time Logan Webb pitched against the Dodgers. Phil Cuzzi had a terrible game. Like, why are we still doing this? If the technology exists to get the calls right, and it either does or it should by now, if it doesn't, it's only because we haven't prioritized it. Let's get the calls right. That's all I'm saying. You got anything to add to that, Vince?
No, nothing that I disagree with. I've talked about this a lot with people outside of the podcast about robot umps and everything else. And actually, some of the people that I've talked about that were in favor of human element this season is turning them the other way. So, that's how bad the umpires have been.
Yeah.
In all games, not just in Dodger games.
No, it's not just Dodger games. And I have to bite my tongue, and I don't like blaming the umpires. And so again, to be clear, I'm not blaming the umpires. Nothing bothers me more than people who think the umpires always against them. In fact, a couple people in our chat right now think that Hunter Wendelstedt was cheating in favor of the Giants. I don't believe that. I think he's just bad at his job. And I think that's because it's a very hard job for somebody to do. Pitchers throw harder with more movement than they ever have before. And it's not fair to have people who, like, it's a physically impossible job to do sometimes. That's why it's such a big deal when an umpire only misses one call in a game. Most of the time, it's 10 or 12 calls. And I don't understand why we still stand for that. Anyway, we're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about the future of the Dodgers outfield as Jason Hayward gets close to coming back, what that could mean for a few different guys. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So if you got a hunch, you feel good about the Nuggets, you feel good about, Nikola Jokic having a big game, whatever it is, put $5 on it. And if you win, $150 in bonus bets. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, we're back. Thanks again to all our everydayers. Thanks to all of you in the live chat with us. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning, and please subscribe wherever you're watching and listening right now. Also, go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. Locked On Sports Los Angeles is the home of the Locked On Dodgers postcast, hosted by Pete Fox after pretty much every Dodger game. And we lately, when we do go live, we just go basically as soon as Pete is done over there. So we'll try not to ever overlap with Pete, so you can catch both. I know a lot of you in our chat right now were in with Pete just a few minutes ago, so we appreciate all of you. And remember to catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. So Jason Hayward played his second rehab game with Oklahoma City, went 0 for 3 again, so he's now 0 for 6 in the 2 games. He did make a nice play in the outfield, and the Dodgers originally said that he would play 2 games with Oklahoma City, and then they would see where they're at. And so a few questions kind of on our minds right now. Where will the Dodgers think Jason Hayward is at? Is it just a matter of getting reps, and if he's healthy, he's going to be back, or do they actually want to see him performing? I guess that's the first question, Vince. Let's dig into that one, the Jason Hayward question. Then we can dig into the question of whenever he does come back, what will it mean for the current roster?
Yeah, I don't know. I got to imagine they're more concerned with him being healthy rather than him having any type of performance in these rehab games. So if he plays, 3 games and he feels good, or 2 games and he feels good, I got to imagine that they would bring him back whenever he's healthy, not necessarily performance-based. So that's where I'm at there. When he does come back, they will have interesting, they haven't faced a left-handed pitcher, but we haven't seen Chris Taylor in a while. He did not even, no pinch hit opportunities or anything. James Outman is still pretty bad. He's, hitting 151 on the season with a 530 OPS. And then you have Andy Pages, who 2 weeks ago was, basically getting guaranteed the chance of a runway by Dave Roberts. And now he struggled the last couple of weeks. Although I don't, I think it kind of comes down to, if I don't think they DFA Chris Taylor, he could have, some type of phantom injury stint, and maybe that's the way they go about it. But if it does come down to Pages and Outman, it's a question of, do you think Outman can figure it out with 1-year track record of him having struggled and figured it out? Or do you go Pages figuring it out with no necessarily MLB track record, but him being good, now a little bit scuffling, can he be good again?
Yeah, there's so many questions, and I think I agree with you that Hayward will be back as soon as they're convinced he's healthy. And that, like, there's part of me that wouldn't be surprised if they make two changes at once. I do think that James Outman has reached the point where he needs to get some of that confidence back, and we know he can hit in AAA. And well, sometimes my opinion is there's no point sending him to AAA. We already know he can hit there. But if it has become a confidence issue, or even a timing thing where going back to where you can hit, you can get back to the basics, and it could help him be better in the big leagues. So I would expect that he will go down when Hayward comes back. But also, if Chris Taylor, Taylor's not going to play, and so Miguel Vargas is tearing the cover off the ball in AAA. And a year ago, Vargas was in the big leagues and was considered a big part of the Dodgers' future. And then he couldn't hack it. But, if you send a guy down to AAA to get your swing back, well, Vargas has done that. And notably, Vargas has played exclusively left field this year. And so, if Chris Taylor can manufacture, a hip injury or shoulder fatigue or whatever it is, so they can put him on the IL, and you go with Hayward and Vargas, then Hayward can still be your fourth outfielder, and your everyday outfield, like against left-handed pitching, is Miguel Vargas in left, Andy Pages in center, and Teoscar Hernandez in right. That is, that's your lineup against left-handers. And then if you want to slot in Hayward against some right-handers, obviously that's more starts for him, but Hayward can play any of the three outfield positions. Really, everybody except Vargas has a lot of outfield flexibility there of those four guys. And so you can easily rest different guys. Pages might benefit from a rest once in a while. Vargas would definitely, if he came back to big leagues, would benefit from a rest once in a while. And so if Hayward gets 60% of the starts against righties, and his starts are split, 80-20 with Pages and Vargas sitting, and then Teoscar the 20% sitting, everybody's still getting a lot of playing time, and it kind of eliminates the black holes of the offense. Like, because Vargas, even when he was struggling, he wasn't a black hole the way that he didn't have quite the swing and miss that we're seeing from Taylor and Outman. And so you still at least hope for some productive outs once in a while.
And yeah, I mean, Miguel Vargas is a guy that, like you said, wasn't as bad. You look at where James Outman is right now, 151, 530 OPS. Miguel Vargas last year in 300 at-bats was 191, 640 OPS. So, or not last year, but 195, 672 OPS. So a little bit better than even that number. So he can be a guy that fills some type of role. And like we've talked about before with Taylor and Kike being, kind of the same player at this point in terms of versatility, and Kike is having a little bit more success offensively. Taylor maybe needs to go rebuild that swing somewhere and figure it out. Maybe head to Arizona and work on that sore wrist that he has and work on that swing that he's trying to get right. And for Outman, I think it's one of those things where you want to say, well, what benefit is going to AAA when we know he's good down there? But that's the same thing with Miguel Vargas last year. Like, obviously that one was a little bit more out of necessity because they were not necessarily running away with the division at that point, and they did need to try something different. And that's when the Mookie experience kind of started. But it's one of those things where you can kind of play with the outfield extra spot. You can kind of play hot hand the rest of the way and kind of figure it out. Now, Pages was the hot hand, and Outman and Taylor have struggled. They're still struggling now. Pages struggling a little bit. Okay, now bring up Miguel Vargas, and if you get Hayward back, and if one of those guys catches the hot hand, then you play them a little bit more, and kind of run that way with it, and just kind of figure it out. And I think it's important for Pages specifically to kind of stay up and fight through this. And if it gets to a point where now he's been bad longer than he's been good, then maybe you make a decision at that point. You give Vargas a chance, you see what he can do. See if he can handle the outfield in the major leagues, and really see what you got there. And at the very least, give yourself a chance to see what you got with these young guys. And if not, not that you want to sell low, but it would open up some of these guys to be maybe available for trade.
Yeah. And one of the key things about Vargas last year, even when he struggled, he had above average strikeout and walk rates. He was better than average in both of those categories. He had a 224 BABIP. That was batting average on balls in play was terrible. And that is at least somewhat luck. Part of the reason Vargas got sent down was because his defense wasn't good at second base, and the Dodgers were really struggling defensively. The offense, he wasn't hitting enough to justify that defense. So if he could play left field and hit the ball, it would be a huge upgrade. Elieser mentions in the chat Drew Avens and Ryan Ward, who are both hitting really well in AAA. We've talked about both of those guys in the past. Problem with both of those guys is that neither of them is on the 40-man roster, and so there's not room for them right now. That would require 40-man roster moves. Vargas is listed as infield, as she points out, but he's been playing almost entirely outfield this year. Because the writing was on the wall that Vargas didn't have a job in the Dodgers infield. If he was going to be a Los Angeles Dodger, it was going to be in the outfield. And so that's what he's been doing. There's options there. I'm interested to see if they will pull the trigger on both of these at the same time. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And then that also gives you the option then of having, if James Outman goes back to AAA and does figure things out, well, then maybe Hayward's back has to flare up again later or something. It kind of gives you some wiggle room. But it seems to me like Vargas has earned a chance to be back in the big leagues now. And I think I would like this Dodgers lineup a lot more if he was in it more often.
Yeah. This comment, Vargas hit nothing. We don't need another rookie who hits nothing. One, Vargas not a rookie. Two, what else are you going to do right now? Like, you're not going to go out and trade for somebody at this moment. So you got to see what you got.
Yeah, and the fact that he didn't hit well last year doesn't mean he won't hit well this year. I heard of a guy named Mike Trout once who really, really struggled his first year and got sent back down, and then he ended up being a decent player. So it happens to a lot of people. I even remember a guy named Shohei Ohtani, people saying that he was a bust in his first year, his first spring training even, that it was a bad idea for him to come over from Japan. So stranger things have happened than Miguel Vargas figuring things out. That'll do it for us for today. You got anything else, Vince?
No, back home, Shohei Ohtani bobblehead. I'm interested to see how it's going to be at Dodger Stadium tomorrow in terms of lines to get in and all that stuff.
All right. Well, thank you all for being with us. Thank you for being here with us live. Thanks for being an everydayer. Please become an everydayer by watching and listening every weekday morning. Become an insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, including the Locked On Dodgers postcast on Locked On Sports Los Angeles, hosted by Pete Fox. And catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. DMs are open for both of us over there. You can email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.